Hi, this is Joanne from Life Choice Healing. Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. If most of you are new, because I've only done this once before, so the majority of you are going to be new. Anyway, the premise of our channel, this channel, is to walk through some of life's challenges, some of the traumas, and what I have personally found that has helped me to get through to the other side. If they're not any of them anything miraculous or something I'm sure the rest of you have not heard of, but they're what I have used and how I've used them and how my trauma has shaped who I was and shaped who I am. Took away who I was and shaped who I am. How about that? Anyway, I told you before about him, if you've watched a video before, about how I use my gardening, my healing, as part of my healing. Nurturing life is what I refer to it as, because I didn't know that I necessarily wanted to nurture life 2 years ago. I didn't know I could, to be honest. So, I am a massage therapist. I go through that again. I'm an occupational therapist, assistant, certified occupational therapist, which I've done for almost 40 years and loved every minute of it. And I'm also a mom and a grandma and a wife. And I want to tell you a little bit more about what had happened and when it had happened and when I finally realized how the journey of the gardening and the nurturing of life, how I realized that was all part of my healing. And I want to share it with you. So here we are. Here we go. To start with, in order to give you a fuller picture, I do need to go back a little bit and talk about some of the trauma. I'm not going to give you the gory details because y'all have our own gory details. And at some point, I might. I'm going to have to talk about that. But right now, so I had surgery 2 years ago. The 18th of April was my first. And I say first because there were subsequent. I was a 15-day in the hospital. At times it was life-threatening. Not going to kid you. And when I left there, well, let's say, when I left to go home, I was left with a wound that went from my breastbone down to the pubic bone. Laid out like a salmon. That's what I tell people it looked like when I look down at it. It's like a fish, and insides of a fish is what it looked like to me from here looking down. So I had that when I came home. I ended up with a wound vac that stayed with me for about 2 months. The doctor was impressed because he really thought when I left the hospital that was going to be my new friend for quite some time. But there were no infections, everything was clean, everything was good. So I only ended up with it for about 2 months, actually, from the time, end of June it was gone. I took it with me everywhere I went. His name was George. And he was my new best friend because I didn't have a choice. If I wanted to go, I took him with me. First couple of weeks, though, after I got home, I wasn't going anywhere. I came home May 5th, which means in Wisconsin, your garden is well underway. It should be well underway if you were going to have a early, decent harvest. But my husband had spent the last 15 days going to work and running back and forth to the hospital, and it wasn't any of that. And we were an hour and a half away from the hospital, so his time was fully consumed, and then some. So none of that got done until after I got home in May. And then he tried, and he did it. He did fine. But it was really hard on him, because when I came home, I was bedridden pretty much. I got up, tried to get up and go to the meals. I'd sit at the table for a meal, but I couldn't eat anything. Everything I ate tasted like metal, and I've never known why that happened. It passed. I think it has something to do with all the medications they give you when you're in the hospital. But I don't know. It's a thing. I've had other people experience the same thing. So I know it's a thing, and I couldn't eat, but I did get up when I could get up and tried to get up, but it was exhausting. It really was. And I couldn't move because this was all open wound and bandages. And at the same time that I got that other wound, I ended up with myostomy, which is a huge part of what has kept me from being myself again. There are so many benefits to it. Now, looking back after the second year, I fully see and fully understand each one of them. But I also see how that my life is never going to be like my life was before. And it took me a couple of years worth of warring with myself and everybody around me, because I looked okay. 6 months into it, I had the vac off, the wound vac off, so the obvious outward wound was healed. But I still had myostomy, who I've affectionately named Helen. I can tell you more details about that later. But so I stammer a lot when I get frustrated. I don't know if anybody can understand, unless you've been there, how much different you feel, and how much you're not going to feel like that person again. It's pretty much, you have to find a new normal. And I hate that word. I hear people say it all the time. It's like, new normal, nothing. I have to figure out who I am, which is what I did. So part of the healing journey, and I'm going back again, was at that spring in April, May, June, when we should be doing all of our planting and all of our gathering and all of our, I like to sprout my own seeds. I used to do a lot of that. And none of that was happening that year. And I missed it. Wasn't able to even buy plants, because I couldn't get to a greenhouse. I couldn't buy plants to, decorate my abode, which was a big deal. I love to do that. Every year I love to do that. My dad was a huge, he was a farmer, and he loved his flowers. And I never thought that that was part of who I was until now, but apparently it is. So I couldn't do any of that the first year. I had family and friends who would try, and they did a wonderful job helping me purchase plants and to bring those around me, because, like I said, for the better part of the summer, I didn't move a lot. I didn't move much. It was a valiant effort, and I had a few plants, and I just enjoyed what I had, to be honest with you. But that brought me to the realization, I think, at that point, that was not going to be okay for any length of time. I needed to get my fingers in the dirt again. And I, like I said, I don't think I know I needed to do that until I did. We didn't have much of a garden the first year. There wasn't much plants out here for the first year. Fast forward to the second summer, which was last year, we did start doing some of those things. But again, I was still trying to work. 4 days a week, 3 days a week. It went back and forth. And going in patients' homes and doing home care and therapy And it was hard. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. There was a lot of mixed emotions with the encounters I was having, which until then I didn't really have any problem with that. But now I'm going into those people's homes having already endured what they had endured. A lot of times, been right there with them, could completely relate, which I'm almost positive was priceless for them. To have me be there a year and a half, a year, yeah, year, 2 years after my ordeal and be back up and working. That they often commented on how they thought that was miraculous. And I was like, well, just got to do what you got to do, right? Which I'm thrilled that I was able to help them in that way. But I'm not sure that helping them in that way was all that valuable to me at that point. I had, God always gives you exactly what you need, right? So I all of a sudden had a ton of patients that I was seeing with fresh ostomies. I don't know if the rate of placing ostomies has increased in the last few years, but I can tell you before my surgery, I don't, honestly, I don't know that I had to see or help anybody with an ostomy. And I used to go and give baths and do the whole thing. So I dealt with a lot of stuff, but that was one of them. And then all of a sudden, I had a lot of them, which I could give advice. I could give them information. Woof, get off of me. That was fun. I mean, I can look at my video afterwards and tell you what that was, but that was fun. Back to what I was saying. I was able to help. I had knowledge that fresh patients coming out of surgery didn't, only by default because I had lived it a year before them. I had help. I could share what I'd learned as much as I could. And I did. And it was good. Until it wasn't. I didn't realize, I thought I was helping with offering that information, and they would, those patients would go on my caseload, and I'm not sure why, because like I said, it had never happened before. So I was offering them all kinds of, you can do this, kinds of stuff. We can get through this. I did it, you can do it, kind of thing, which was good. It was all good. But the hospital that I felt had done this to me was the hospital that I worked for. And these patients were coming out of the hospital that I worked for. And I was not the only story that I was hearing, which honestly I think was just, it was hard. It was really, really hard. I don't have a really good word for it right now, but it was hard. It was like I was reliving it every time we had to deal with it with another patient, and it was not, it wasn't cool. And I didn't know at that time that I was dramatically reliving that trauma every time we dealt with it. And quite honestly, I thought maybe that helping people in that way might be helpful to me to get a grip on what I had to deal with. And who knows? And maybe it was. I wasn't feeling it at the time. It was really, really, really hard to go back to work and hard to be at work. And I really loved my job. So that was a challenge for me as well, because I did love my job, and I do love helping people and being a help to people. So to admit defeat in that realm was a whole nother challenge. But coming back to the original statement of, I found the healing part of this, I think, completely by accident. The first 2 years, or first year that I came home was in May. Couldn't do anything that year. The next year, I did more, but again, I was still working and doing all that other stuff, and that was challenging all by itself. And then it was this year. And this year, I have kind of dug in with both hands, literally, both feet, both hands, into the dirt, and kind of have really felt the healing power in the nurturing. Let's just say that, which is part of why I decided to start this, because that knowledge in and of itself is priceless to somebody who's laying in a bed thinking their life was over and they had to figure out how to survive. And this is just one of the ways I've survived. And I want to be able to bring that to other people to see if that will help them get through their times of, this sucks. Now what do I do? So, I worked with my plants. Yesterday, I separated this one and this one from the mama who's over there. And you know what? I'm not sure I can even take you down there to show you. Oh, look at that. I can. Much better. The spider on the floor by the dead cup is the one I took them apart from. And it was huge. It was a necessary thing. It needed to happen. But it was a challenge. These two today are looking great, which is yay. I'm going to put them back in the house, I think, maybe this afternoon. No, maybe not. Maybe one more day outside. And that one we're going to leave outside for a little bit, see if it gets its bearings. I think the fresh air out here is way better than the stale air inside. Plus the heat, the warmth, the water, the whole thing. So I'm going to leave him out here for another day to kind of boost his spirits. And maybe move these guys in. This year has been my year of recovery, my year of getting my life back. I quit work in January this year. And I talked a little bit about this, but there's this thing called post-sepsis syndrome for people who it's a lot like PTSD for, war victims, but it's PTSD from being in the ICU. And in my hospital stay, I think was in the ICU 3 times, maybe even 4. They kept moving me in and out. Honestly, I didn't know where I was half the time I was there. That's what I hear from reports. So it all makes sense. The emotional stuff that I dealt with and the emotional stuff I still deal with, going to a hospital to visit a family member these days is not a good idea. I'll get there, hopefully, someday, but not right now. Okay, so moving forward, this is what I do for my healing. I use my plants. I use my relaxation. I'm a massage therapist. I mentioned that in the last one. I give massages, and I also work on myself. I shouldn't even do that there. I should show it right up on the sides. Oh my God, that feels good. And then I have another one that's my personal favorite. I got to show you this one too. It's a thumb saver, and I'm not sure you can even see that. My thumb is so crooked. But you can take that and run that back down the back of your neck and up your traps. Oh, they're amazing little tools. They are. If you want one, I can show you where to get them. Or you can come over and I can do it for you. Either one. So this video has been basically about how I make connected the dots to the fact that I wasn't working, wasn't able to partake in any of the planting or harvesting or anything that first year. I was pretty out of sorts with that wound vac and my new ostomy and all the things. I was not moving around real quick and doing all kinds of things. Last year I started to, but again, like I said, I was working, and how much can you do when you really don't even know for sure what you're able to do anymore? So this year, after I retired and started my retirement, and was able to give a little bit more time and effort into it, I realized how much making these guys come back to life, which, they'll stand up again, I'm sure of it, has brought me healing and just, worked its magic. If I have a way to focus outside of myself on somebody else and not sit here and think about the fact that I don't have the life I had 2 years ago, if I don't think about that, which I know I talk about a lot, but if I don't think about it on the day-to-day gets better. It really does. I want to make sure that I'm not losing my mind, but there's a hummingbird flying around my head. Up over the top of that. I heard him. So you might see a flit of him in the background because I have plenty of food out here to help him. So, to kind of sum things up, my journey started with the surgeries 2 years ago. I spent my first year just trying to live after I went back to work and tried to function as a human. The second year has been a reset of slowing down, taking some deep breaths, taking long walks. I journal. I just appreciate nature. I can sit out on this deck for hours and just listen to the noises and the wind chimes. I'm not sure if you heard those. And appreciate. I guess that's what it really is. What it boils right down to is appreciating life again. Not being angry at God anymore because he left me here. And to those who are given much, much is expected, right? I've been given a lot of grace. I'm still here, and I cursed his name a lot. So with that grace is to be extended, which is part of what I want to do with this channel, is just offer grace for you, for your healing, and for myself, getting through this at whatever pace it is that God wants me to get through it at, and finding our way to the other side. We'll see what happens. I'm going to take you along on the journey. I hope we come back to see the next one. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the massage aspect next time. And in the meantime, I really would like you guys to engage if you see fit. Leave me some comments. Give me your stories. I want to know your stories too. That's how we build a community and begin the healing, is within that community that we're hoping to build here. I'm sharing my stories so that you guys, so it opens the door a little bit more for you guys to share yours. So leave them in the comments. Let me know what you think, and how I can help, if there's anything I can help with. Until then, I'm going to wrap this up. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all the things. And until then, until the next one, I'll see you later.